Welcome, I'm Jim Shunk, and today's topic is stress. We've all dealt with stress in one form or another, at home, the workplace, but it can affect every person differently, but it can have the same impact on our overall health if it's not dealt with properly. So what is stress? Well, it's defined as a state of mental or emotional pressure brought on by unusual or highly demanding circumstances or situations. In the workplace, it could be stress over a heavy workload, tight timeframes, customer interactions, or even management and superior relations, coworkers. At home, it could be dealing with our children or our spouse or other family members. In order to understand stress more, we have a few terms that we need to familiarize ourselves with. Now, there are 3 stages of stress: alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. Alarm is when our body releases hormones like cortisol into the bloodstream. And resistance is how our body will adapt to the stress and try to return to normal. Exhaustion is what happens when we simply run out of gas. Our body begins to shut down because we've used up all of our energy reserves. Now, men and women deal with stress in different ways. Men, for example, tend to use the flight or fight reaction. It's an emotional or behavioral response causing aggression or taking an attack stance if we're going to fight, and flight where we flee away quickly and we retreat to safety. While women tend to use the tend and befriend response, which is a reaction in which you try to create a network where they can talk to others and get involved in activities that provide protection. Now, stress is an emotional response to life circumstances, and there are a few ways that we can look at it. The power of positive thinking can go a long way to combat that rigor of stress. And it comes in different forms. Optimism is one form where the people find the positive in all things. And optimistic people tend to be more happier, so they deal with less stress. Self-efficacy is another, which focuses on one's ability to make things happen to get what they want. And they respond in constructive ways, collecting information and talking to lessen the difficulties that they may be experiencing. For a fortunate few, you may actually have both of these qualities. In that case, you are considered hardy. And a hardy person finds the positive in the situation, and they take direct action to take care of the negative situations that they might be facing. So let's get clinical a moment. Long-term effects of stress that can develop are health problems, such as mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, personality disorders, cardiovascular diseases, such as increased heart disease, high blood pressure, abnormal heart rhythms, heart attacks, and stroke. The short term can include headaches, which I've got one now, muscle tension, pain, chest pain, racing heartbeat, fatigue, upset stomach, spikes in blood pressure, shortness of breath. And the heart doesn't do so well with stress. It can increase the blood flow, and at the same time, it'll reduce the blood vessels, causing a buildup of plaque on the artery walls. This will lead to increased blood pressure, and it can damage the heart muscle, which then can cause heart attacks. Stress can also create a physiological reaction in our nervous system, causing a chain reaction where bear with me, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands, known as the HPA axis, release hormones into our system like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol, which I've mentioned before, into the blood system, which all of these help to prepare our bodies to the threat, which helps us respond to any event. But if the stress is prolonged, it can cause more problems, more physical health problems, where the glands don't stop creating all these hormones that I've just mentioned, And all of this can then lead to more fatigue and more depression. So hormones play a large part in our bodies and how we react to stress. Our bodies are hardwired, and when the threat of stress passes, our hormones return to normal levels. But if the stress becomes chronic, you've heard that word before, chronic stress, they remain on high alert and can increase these health problems. So here's the deal. You can't ignore stress. It won't go away on its own. You need to take steps to manage it. If you don't, it can be detrimental to your life. It's unhealthy to suppress these negative feelings that you're faced with. And there are several different ways and strategies that you can take to try to alleviate stress. One of them is to open up, talk to people. It could be a friend, a coworker, a family member, a pastor, a psychologist. And another way that has been proven to work is also just writing it down. Keep a journal. Whatever ails you, just write it down on a piece of paper. Sometimes writing it down, thinking about it, and maybe reading it aloud can actually release some of that stress. So on a personal note, I've dealt with some stress myself. I've had successes and I've had failures. I'm dealing with stress just creating this presentation. But I've been successful in some of it. I have been working at my job for 13 years. And I currently work as a business technician, and I deal with stress in the form of working in an operating business, and that person no longer has phone service because I'm either installing it or I've had to take it down. And there have been moments where I actually recall this one location where they had 8 different phone numbers, and it was the middle of the day. It was a medical office. And I was trying to install their phone numbers, but I told the customer that it was only going to be 25 minutes for them to be down, and I'll be able to have them back up and working. And unfortunately, Murphy's Law kicked in, and the phone numbers did not work. And I was on the phone with my support to try to get these phone numbers working, while the time and the minutes, they just keep ticking away. It actually ultimately ended up taking about 45 minutes before I was able to get their phone systems back up and running. And of course, this is a doctor's office and the phones are absolutely necessary. During that time, the customer was getting a little bit more upset. I was kind of dealing backwards and forwards with everything that was going on, and I needed to take a breath. So I basically went back into the IT closet, the room where I was doing all this work, and I just breathed. And I tried to be a little religious in my life, and I prayed, just please just take this away, help me get through this, and calm me down, and it'll be okay. Circumstances got taken care of, and we were able to get through it. And the phone was back up and working. Now, on the other hand, I have dealt with some stress where it didn't go so well. I have had situations where a customer had internet services that was down, and we needed to get them back up online, and it was not coming back online. The customer was getting more and more irate, and they began screaming and yelling at me, and in turn I kind of broke down and I needed to walk out of the room. I just didn't handle it well. Ultimately ended up calling up my supervisor and asking for assistance, and I just explained that I just couldn't continue because I was at wit's end. I ended up, the supervisor came over, and I could not go in to complete that work. It was just a very tenuous situation, and I didn't do well with handling myself or handling the situation in any way. So there are many different ways of dealing with stress. As we talked about with the strategies, talk to people, open up. You're going to find your own way, and one that works best for you. I hope that this discussion helped in some way in giving you a little bit more information about stress and what we need to do with it. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day.